of the house, and behold, waters issued out from under the threshold of the house eastward, for the forefront of the house stood toward the east. Now that's like Solomon's temple and Herod's temple. The main door faced the east toward the Mount of Olives. That's what he's saying here. The waters came down from under the right side of the house at the south side of the altar. He then brought me out of the way of the gate northward and led me about the way without unto the other gate, and so forth. Now let me get down to this part. He started measuring the waters in verse 3, and they come to the ankles. He then measures the water in verse 4, and it says they're to the waist or to the loins. He measures the water, and all of a sudden they move from ankle deep, they go to the knees, and they go to the waist, and then it becomes over here in verse 5. He measured 1,000, and actually it's 1,000 cubits, as it says. He measured 1,000, and there was a river that I could not pass over, for the waters were risen waters to swim in, a river that could not be passed over. Now when you read it, and to save time, I didn't read all of it. You can do this later. Here's what happens. He starts out in the city of Jerusalem, and he starts out and he says, well, this water is only ankle deep. Well, you know, the Qumran Brook, that's basically what it is right now. It's ankle deep. Now, he goes out 1,000, and it becomes a river then to the knees. It goes out another 1,000, it becomes a river to the waist. He goes out another 1,000, and he's over his head. Now, I want to show you how a prophecy that's literally going to be fulfilled in the future can have an application for right now. Is everybody ready to go there with me? Here we go. Watch this. I love this. In the time of Abraham, who's the father of the faith, the river of God was only ankle deep. Why was it ankle deep, ladies and gentlemen? Because ankle deep, you learn to walk by faith. Your first level of serving God is I call it ankle deep level, is walking by faith. Then all of a sudden, if you measure from, watch this, if you measure from Abraham and you go 1,000 years into the future, guess where you come? You come to the time of King David. David, at that point, the water is knee-deep. What do you do with knee-deep water? You ever seen a kid? They march in it. You can't swim in knee-deep water, but you can sure march in knee-deep water. David was a warrior. David was a soldier. David was God's man to battle and fight and win the victory over the enemies. All right? Now, the third thing that happens is he goes out another 1,000. Is everybody hearing me now? And let's say that's 1,000 years. Where do you come from David? Then 1,000 years forward, you come to John the Baptist. What is John the Baptist doing? He's at the Jordan River. What's he doing at the Jordan River? Baptizing people. What kind of water do you use to baptize people? And you can't put them in water over their head. You can't do that. You put people right about waist deep water, and you take them under the water and bring them back up. I hope somebody's hearing this. So the waist deep level represents the time of John the Baptist. But then if you go 1,000 cubits out or 1,000 years in the future, guess what happens? You come into the river, that you can't swim in. That river is the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. So in other words, the river that Ezekiel saw, here's what it represents. It represents your walk with God. The first thing you do, like Abraham, is you learn how to walk by faith. But you don't walk by faith long till you realize you're in a spiritual battle. So you have to learn how to fight the bears and the giants and the lions the way David did. But after you learn how to fight, you've also got to learn what water baptism is. Water baptism is the identification with Christ. It's the identification of who you are in Him. Pretty soon, not only are you walking by faith, not only are you learning there's a warfare out there you've got to win, but you start learning who you are in Jesus. The reason some people get messed up spiritually is the enemy has them convinced that they are not what Jesus says they are. Jesus says, I'm redeemed. Jesus says, I'm born again. Jesus says, I'm in His image. Jesus says, I can have victory. But if you don't believe that, you see what I'm saying? Then the enemy will defeat you. But all of a sudden, I love this, the river, you just get submerged in the river. That's the level of the fullness of the Holy Ghost, where the Spirit of God is in your mind, your body, your spirit. You think the thoughts of God. You learn the mind of the Spirit. You learn how to walk with God. Now, a lot of Christians stay at the ankle-deep level. They're just happy kind of messing around in the water. Ooh, it's fun. Some of them like to march. You know, they don't mind fighting, but they don't want to fight all the time. But I'm going to tell you something. You can't get to that river where you're backstroking and swimming till you learn how to walk and fight and identify with the Lord. Come on, somebody. Can't get there. It's a process. Now, that is a spiritual application, but let me go back to the literal application because I told you earlier about this area. Now, let's go into the prophetic future. Oh, I'm ready for that. I'm ready to tell you this now. Several years ago, Globes magazine reported on this. There was a major discovery made underneath our feet. You ready? they found a huge, massive supply of water. 3 miles in circumference. Oh, you're not hearing me. Now, why is it important to understand that? Because you already have water in Jerusalem. You already have the Mount of Olives with the earthquake fault line. You already have the mountains that connect to that area where water can come into the sea, right? But now you have a huge water source underneath our feet. Now, why is that significant prophetically? Because they can all verify this, and I'll have them verify this, and we'll show you some clips, but so you'll know. Now, you look now, and all you see is the mountains of Jordan, the Dead Sea, and you see where the Dead Sea is dried up, and you see the desert. We're in the Judean wilderness, by the way, but you don't see a lot of trees. But I'm telling you, when you come in this direction and go that way, you see date trees, you see palm trees, you see fruit trees. Am I telling the truth? And there's farms. Now, when I came here in 1988, you listen to me, there was nothing here. I stood over there on top of Mount Nebo where Moses saw the promised land, looked over here, and all I saw was one little green patch called Jericho. And boy, I'm telling you, you go over there now and look, and all you see is green, 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 green. You know where? You know what they're doing? They're getting the water. And there's... See, you came by here, but you didn't know it. The Valley of Achor is right up here. You know what the Valley of Achor is now? Look at it. You passed it. Vineyards, vineyards, vineyards. You know what the Bible said in the Old Testament? The Valley of Achor shall become a place of vineyards and for herds to lie down. Come on, talk to me now. How can you do that without water? Now, the exciting thing about me standing here is to tell you that Ezekiel goes on to say in Ezekiel chapter 47 that there'll be trees on either side of the river, verse 7. He says the water goes into the desert, being brought forth to the sea will be healed, that everything the waters touch will be healed. Fishermen will come, verse 10, from En-Gedi to En-Eglaim and spread their nets. But here's verse 11, the miry places and the marshes thereof shall not be healed, and they shall be given to salt. For this prophecy, now I'm going to say this to you, let me backtrack. When I came to Israel several years ago, and this has been probably, I'm going to estimate 15 to 16 years ago, I read this prophecy with my guide Gideon on the bus, and we realized something, that this prophecy indicates that part of the sea here will never be healed. It'll be miry, it'll be given totally to salt, and part of the sea would be healed. Now, you and I know that you cannot take one body of water and make part of it one way and part of it another way. It's impossible in the natural. The only way it could happen is if you have two seas forming. Guess what took place? Right across from Masada, and you can see this on the modern satellite maps, there is now a peninsula that has formed on the Israeli side all the way over to the side of the country of Jordan. Now, that peninsula there, the only way they connect water from the northern part of the sea here to the southern part of the sea is a canal that they have dug to bring this water into that southern part. That southern part, ladies and gentlemen, how many of you partners were with me on the pre-trip? Did you all see the southern part of the sea? Am I telling the truth? It is not like this. This looks like good, clear water. You can swim in this. You can't swim in the south. It is totally salty. I mean, there's cakes and layers of salt. Why? Because the Dead Sea has the Jordan River coming in it, but it has no outlet. You know what? If you don't learn to put out, you're going to die, just like the Dead Sea. God didn't create you just to receive, receive, receive. God created you to be a receiver and a giver. Oh, that'll preach right there now. Come on, talk to me, somebody. So here's the part that I've got to get you to see, and I want you to understand. And that is that the Dead Sea has now formed two seas. This water is in the northern part. They are also talking about digging a channel from the Mediterranean and bringing water from the Mediterranean into the Dead Sea area. Now, that's in the works. That's being talked about. That's in the process now. And so, in other words, one day there'll be fish in the Dead Sea. Well, here's the thing that is really fabulous. Charlie Ellis, who's behind the camera, was with us several years ago when we went from here all the way to the southern part of the Dead Sea, down to the area where Sodom and Gomorrah one time existed. At the bottom part of the Dead Sea, there are fish farms. They have found this water underground. They've made ponds. They made holes in ponds. They've got these ponds, and they're raising 3 kinds of fish, all edible, all available in restaurants and hotels in that area. Folks, the Bible said 2,600 years ago or so, the Dead Sea would be healed, fish would be in the Dead Sea, there would be fresh water that would be there, And when the Lord returns back, when He comes back and returns, that all of this would be a part of prophecy. Now let me give you one more nugget. I don't have time to develop this and probably shouldn't even talk about it at this point because it sidetracks from what we've been sharing with you prophetically. But in the book of Isaiah, it's